Hey guys, we're back with another video, and in this video, we'll be talking about the new Witcher Deckbuilder game, Gwent Rogue Mage. Is it good or is it bad? Is it worth playing? What are some of the specific features, and what do people have to say about the game? If you clicked on this video, you're probably curious about it. So without any further wait, let's begin. First off, let's tackle the basics. What exactly is this game? Rogue Mage should be relatively recognizable if you're acquainted with Gwent. Obviously, we don't mean the game Geralt and company play in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt when we say Gwent, but the multiplayer version that CD Projekt Red created after the popularity of their minigame. This new single-player deck-building game is identical to the old game, but unlike the online version, there are no microtransactions to worry about. Card games aren't often simple to get started with, but luckily this is a single-player experience in which players obtain the cards they want by playing the game rather than investing real money. Gwent Rogue Mage is a roguelike deck builder, where players claw their way through a succession of enemies and villains using a deck of card-based powers and fighters deployed on the field. Unlike Gwent, the proper part of the Witcher lore, which is more about competing with other players, Rogue Mage is purely a PvE game. Players navigate a randomly created map, get new cards for their deck, engage with places of power, and make the moral decisions that have become synonymous with the Witcher RPGs. The game is now accessible on PC, iOS, and Android, and the game director estimates that it will take roughly 30 hours for players to fully explore everything, with each game loop lasting up to an hour. Next off, let's talk about the storyline and what players do in the game. Players assume the role of the mage Alzur as he strives to create the first Witcher centuries before the events of The Witcher 3. Different roads down the road all lead to a formidable beast at the far end, from whom the mage intends to gather those components, but they can also send you through random events, unusual treasure troves, and battle encounters along the way. In each of those fights, you'll face your army against various roadside vagrants, with each fighter employing cards to represent their own armies. It matters where you play those cards. Certain troops boost their neighbors, or have varied effects depending on whether they are in the front or back row of the board. Every unit has a quantitative value that may be raised or dropped depending on the cards each player uses. When both sides have exhausted their supply of fresh cards to play, the side with the higher total score wins. If you're the winner in Gwent Rogue Mage, your quest continues. But if you fail, Alzur will portal to safety and you'll have to restart over. The awards and story unlocked at the conclusion of each journey will remain accessible, but you'll be returned to the start of your journey, losing any card additions. There are 4 decks to pick from, with players getting to choose crucial cards to develop each deck around. Decks begin with a dozen or so cards, but more may be obtained by exploring the map. On each run, players gain more experience, which improves the strength of prospective cards on the following run. Moving on to the next part, how does it compare to the original Gwent? While the fundamental gameplay is simply a quicker version of Gwent, the roguelike loop adds enough to make it seem unique. The game simulates Gwent without the stress of metas or other opponents. Rogue Mage provides the single-player adventure that players may want after they have had enough of Gwent's multiplayer components. Like the original Gwent, deck building is crucial to the game. On the other hand, this game has random cards drawn from a discovered variety. Also, spells are an important aspect of the gaming cycle, since players can spend energy to perform spells. As they journey throughout the world, players will learn to combine and blend spells to adapt to different scenarios. In that regard, the map does not seem alive and exciting, but rather functions as a life choice board for the player to decide their next step. It's clear that plot and action are taking a back burner. Gwent cards are used in this game. Many of them will look extremely familiar to experienced Gwent players. This contains their talents as well as their keywords. It doesn't feel like a huge leap from Gwent to Rogue Mage. Even though the rounds are shorter, with only a single round of play rather than 2, they remain entertaining and high stakes. The variations provide a pleasant single-player experience that fits with The Witcher's world lore. However, if you're looking for a totally incredibly immersive plot, this just isn't the game for you. Gwent Rogue Mage's story essentially concludes with the beginning video and a few audio lines from the two major characters. But Rogue Mage might just be what you're looking for if you want a game to kill some time with some enjoyable gameplay and a lot to unlock and understand. Now, let's talk about the upsides and downsides of the game. Though the basic gameplay is enjoyable and intriguing, with complete voice dubbing for playing cards, it may become somewhat monotonous. This might be done on purpose to ensure that players understand the cards and combinations. But encountering the same few kinds of foes over and over may grow tedious and seem more like a chore than an adventure. Once you play a few run-ins, you start to notice that the monsters just keep repeating. And since you already know how to tackle the beast, it's just not fun anymore. Nonetheless, the essential elements of a CCG roguelike keep the pleasure going. Also, the randomness of how you may get a card is fun. The unpredictability incorporated into the player deck ensures that you never get stuck in a rut. There are 3 base decks, each with a distinct theme ranging from strengthening your own soldiers to surrendering them for more power. You'll always begin a run with the same cards as the deck you choose, but you can collect more as loot along the route by beating opponents, unlocking treasure boxes, and completing events. This makes the game more interesting. Also, the physical card game aspect of Gwent fits itself more to steadily rising strength than the cyclical nature of category leaders like Slay the Spire or Monster Train, where you'll rotate over the same cards numerous times throughout combat. Furthermore, those physical cards aren't suited to perhaps the most fundamental component of the genre that Rogue Mage is seeking to represent: transparency. Your opponent's next move is constantly warned in games like Slay the Spire, allowing you to utilize your turn to prevent a large onslaught or exploit an opportunity. Failure might be the consequence of a terrible deck, but it could also be the result of poor play on your part, such as an inability to react to or prepare for what your opponent was about to toss at you. In Gwent Rogue Mage, however, the information simply does not exist. Because Alzur always takes the initial move, your opponent always has one hand remaining to play at the conclusion of a round. So basically, players don't know what their card might end up leading to. That thrill keeps the players hooked. What do gamers say about it? The reviews are pretty mixed, but that's a given because every player has their own preferences. One fan on Reddit said, "This is the kind of thing I have wanted for years out of Gwent, a repeatable single-player mode that I can play again and again." Another claims, "Really fun. It looks like it has a lot of replayability. The AI is not stupid, and it's really cheap." By the way, guys, they mean the game is inexpensive, not that it's lacking in quality. A player on the other side of Reddit disagrees with them though, and thinks that Rogue Mage so far seems to really lack that freedom of giving runs a really unique experience. His view is that the players only have the alchemy station to give them something fun that they can experiment with on their own, besides the adding and removing card features, which every game in this genre has. Coming on to the question all of you are wondering about, what would we score it? This definitely isn't the type of game where a player can expect to win on their first try, or even the next handful of tries. The objective is to continue testing yourself, learn which decks and combos work and which don't, and just, have fun with the cards. All in all, we'd rate it a solid 7.5, at least for the initial 30 hours you play it. But if you were to rate it after we got done with exploring it almost completely, it would probably drop to a 6. But obviously, you'd get bored of most games if you play them long enough, so that's irrelevant. It's super fun to play at first, and if you're contemplating whether to play it or not, we say go for it. It's available for $9.99 for the basic single-player version, and $19.99 for the special edition with multiplayer options. And that's a wrap for this video. Have you played the game yet? What are your takes on it? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.